Now, the Labour Congress in recent time has been at the center of controversy as it repeatedly threatens strike actions against the government to protest low salaries and, of course, the cost of living, only to call them off without their demands being actually met. And this pattern has raised questions about the credibility of the Congress and its ability to effectively advocate for workers' rights. But the consequences of these actions extend beyond the labor force. The fluctuating strikes have also disrupted the education of Nigerian youths, forcing them to repeatedly leave school and come back to school as often. Now, this instability has had a detrimental effect on the education system at large and the future prospects of the country's youth, not forgetting the fact that the youths are also faced with a hike in their tuition fees. Now, to further discuss this, I'm now joined by first Femi Adeyeye, Co-Convener, Fund Education Coalition in Lagos. Thank you so much, Femi, for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. You keep making this mistake every time. Adeyeye, well, no problem.
Adeyeye, I'm trying my best. Adeyeye.
I won't strike. Adeyeye, you're trying, but I won't strike, don't worry.
Wait, is it Adeyeye or Adeyeye?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay, but you know there's a name that is Adeyeye.
No.
Oh, there's not?
Don't worry.
Okay.
But I don't
All right. Femi Adeyeye, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right. Also joining us, we have Chidiebere Udemba. I hope I got that right. Human rights activist in Port Harcourt. Thank you so much, Chidiebere, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, gentlemen, let's go straight to the conversation. We're talking about the incessant strike actions by the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Teachers Union that is causing a lot of controversy now. A lot of people are asking, do these people even know what they're doing? I'm going to start with you, Femi. How does the constant threat of strike by the Labour Congress impact the stability of the education system in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for the question. I think a way to look at it is to look at what exactly are the demands of this, strike and protest. Taking into cognizance that we live in a very oppressive state. We live in a very oppressive society. And the last one that happened was against, while the NLC president had the mandate to move down to Imo states to protest and in fact meet with the governor as regards the welfare of workers. He was assaulted in line of duty. So I want to commend that particular, move. Many Nigerians would have, because of, their misgivings or their misconceptions about the NLC, would say, oh, because they assaulted the NLC president, we are going on strike. It is a move that should be commended, because what that sent was a strong message to the government that we are not a conquered people, and we would not accept this state capture. Because if that could happen to an NLC president, the #1 labor leader in the country, what do you expect would happen to, quote unquote, the average Nigerian or average activist? So the effects are, we may talk about it in different ways. That will staggering academic calendar and different. But the major thing here is that, are the demands met? Have we been able to meet these demands? If not, I think we need more strikes. If you would ask me, we need more strikes, more effective protests until our demands are met. Nigerians must learn, as a matter of urgency, how to adapt to temporary discomforts for a longer or a permanent solution to it. We should stop seeking, short fixes, because these short fixes they've not changed anything about our existentialism. We must learn. In fact, as a matter of fact, organize ourselves to go on strikes. Look at what's happening in our country today. Fee hikes everywhere. Students themselves at this time should even go on strikes, because if you do not strike, you will drop out at the end of the day. Why not just face the demon, the Hydra-headed one, in front of you? So we must learn these things, or else we'll just keep, merry-go-rounding, and then we say, oh, labor leaders are sellouts, they are not helping us. We must organize ourselves with or without the labor bureaucrats. So the effects are there, but you cannot throw it away and then say, oh, these things have not been helping us. these strikes are they're affecting our lives. You're saying it as if the people going on strikes too are not being affected by those things you talk about. When you're protesting, Nigerians would say, why are you blocking the road? But you are also being affected by what the issues that we are raising in our protests. So instead of saying, why are we blocking the road, you should actually join. The countries you are talking about today, you want to talk about that, they've developed and all of that. The citizens were not saying those things you're saying. They were not blaming the other citizens for protesting for their welfare. So Nigerians must, that attitude that looks down on protesters, that looks down on activists must change. And I think that's the crux of the matter here.
All right, Femi, I'm going to come back to you on the issue of having more strikes. But in the meantime, Chidiebere, do you share the same opinion with Femi?
Well, yeah, I think on the issue of having more strike, it has a lot of negative impacts on the students in particular, on the youths, on the economy. So I don't think it is something that should be done. I think we should rather work on getting an lasting solution to the problem at hand and end all these once and for all, because it is not telling good on our educational system. It's not telling good on our country as a whole. So I think that the government and the NLC should work together to look for a lasting solution, so we do not need to go on more strikes again. That's my personal opinion.
All right, coming back to the issue of having more strikes now. So I think that the major contention here is not the fact that we're going on strike. It's the fact that the Labour Congress keeps coming up with reasons to go on strike. And then they say that until their demands are met, they will go on a strike action. But they have a meeting with the government, nothing is done about it. And then they, dissolve the strike action and call back the students. So people are now asking, okay, fine, you want to go on strike because your demands are not being met. You need better living conditions. The government is not responding. You need increments in salaries. The government is not responding. There's a hike in tuition fee and a lot of things. The government is not responding. Now, you have a meeting with government. They're not saying that they will do what you're asking, but then you call off the strike. So what exactly is it that you're going on strike for in the first place? So what is your take on all of that?
All right. What you just said now is a very good critique. And I think labor bureaucrats, the labor leadership, because there's a salient difference between the leadership of the NLC or that of the TUC and the workers themselves. And as we've seen it in Nigeria today, many times than not, the interests of the workers are actually different from that of the labor leaders. The truth must be told. And it is a critique that many of these labor leaders should accept with humility. A critique that, why do you call off a strike, after raising the hopes of Nigerians and all of that? And then you just call it off when the demands have not been met. But you cannot also blame them totally. There are times when the other thing I said about the mentality of Nigerians, trying to force down the throats of, labor bureaucrats that, why are you going on strike? You are disturbing the economy. Sometimes they fall for that blackmail themselves. So when they protest for 2 days, they are already looking at it that, man, those people are calling us out. They are saying we are not, we are affecting their livelihood. They can't go out, they can't. And so they start crawling back into their shells. But that's not enough. That blackmail, it's time to throw that blackmail into the trash can of history so that we can progress as a people. Moving forward, labor bureaucrats must understand that Nigerians are at that tipping point. They are at that point where they would not take excuses, both from the labor leadership and the government. So if the labor bureaucrats are not careful, they would be matched with the ruling class, with the government, when the people rise in a revolution. That is because it is inevitable. It would happen in this country. So the labor leaders must, as a matter of urgency, start the real work of education. You must educate people before you go on strike. That is another critique. If you go on strike without educating the people on the reasons why you have to go on that strike, they would come against you after 2 days. It is psychology. You're telling me that you want to help me fight for my rights, but I've not eaten the first day, I've not eaten the second day. I supported you for 2 days. Then the third day, I'm not even seeing I can't go out to go and get where I can see my urgent 2K. I can't get to that place. Then it is human psychology that will start, rising against you. It happened when Moses was leading the Israelites for Christians. At some point, they turned against, Moses. That what's going on? Let's go back to Egypt. Do you understand? So this education must happen before more strikes come up. And when I said more strikes, I think, except we want to deceive ourselves, the people running the country today are not interested in any dialogue. They are not interested. They are interested in power. You must show power. There must be a power dynamics around it before they can listen.
All right.
Look at it. They didn't do anything. They just protested for 2 days. They said they caught the assaulters. It shows that these people are not ready for your gentleman approach to anything.
All right. You know what, gentlemen? Let's take a look at what people on the street are saying, and then we'll come back to continue this conversation.
If I thought the strike should have held, they should have told us before time.
Actually, I don't feel good because I just actually wasted this transport now. Transport fare, I don't even have. If I thought the strike should have happened too, like I said, they should have told us beforehand to avoid this wastage of this money now. Everywhere is hard like this.
Not good though. I know the teachers are trying, but at least they're supposed to inform us, even though it's yesterday, and we know this thing. There wasn't light yesterday to know the news and.
No, it's not nice. Just come to school. Even if they had to have a strike, they had to inform us about the strike. And we have a platform which they are supposed to inform our parents about it. So it's not good.
They say that they have not paid teachers. That's why. Painful. I'm about to even do tests, exams, so it's painful. But they say we are going to come to school.
For me, I spent lots of money going to the library. Now I have to spend the money going back. It was really painful to go to the library and finding out that there's no library was closed.
All right, well, as you've seen there, those are students who were sent back home after the strike action was put into motion. Now, Chidiebere, let me come to you. These students were, like one of them said, they were about to write their exams, and then some of them didn't even have transport money, but they wasted the transport to go to school, and then they were sent back home. This, of course, is having an effect on the students in Nigeria. Like they always say, when two elephants fight, the grass suffers it. We're seeing that there is an effect on, the students of Nigeria. What do you think that effect will be, or that effect is, if these continues like this, the incessant strike actions, the fluctuations, the indecisiveness of the labor unions?
Okay, yeah. There is a very huge effect on the Nigerian students if this continues. Yeah, because, okay, look at the students that were interviewed. They were about to write their exams, and all of a sudden they were sent home. Now, from that, you see that it affects the curriculum of the students. That's the educational curriculum. Now, okay, let's still go back to tertiary institutions like the universities. Most students in final year, they are about to take their exams, and the next thing they hear is they are going on strike. Now, a student that is supposed to take a course of 4 years may end up taking that course for 5 years, 6 years, or even more. So that is a very huge impact that it is causing on the students. Also, okay, in the situation where maybe after a long strike, then the students come back, they don't get to, the teachers would rush them and they wouldn't give them the attention that they are supposed to get initially when while taking those classes. So these are all problems that that come with these strike actions by the NLC. And also, okay, the one that's happened the last time, I'm talking about the negative impacts of those strikes. It came with some challenges, like students that had hostels. They vacated their hostels and they were not staying in those hostels. They left there. Some of them had their food stuff in the hostel, and before they came back, the food stuff were all destroyed. They all got spoiled, and the landlords were still insisting that they should pay. So these are all some of the negative impacts of these strike actions on the Nigerian students, and they should be looked into.
All right. Now, Femi, with all of this, would you agree that there has now become a lack of trust in the Labour Congress, and how can that be fixed?
All right. So, like I said, you said it, and those pupils also said something like information, like they should have informed us. Almost all of them, they were talking about information. So, I think the Labour bureaucrats, the leadership, should actually take this as a lesson that moving forward, the information and the education should be, better done, and that would bring some kind of education and trust back to the people. So this is not a case of when two elephants are fighting. Actually, the Labour leader is also part of. He only happens to be the leader of the Labour, so he's also part of the grass. So it is not two elephants fighting this time around. So that part must be cleared. But I do not want us to also make this mistake of, this effect of the strikes, and then we are putting the whole blame on NLC or the labor unions. I don't think any labor union leader wakes up one morning and just wants to go on strike. I know for ASU very well. ASU consults widely. They talk to the federal government at different levels. They dialogue. Protests and strike are actually the end of all these consultations. At the point where they find out that nothing is coming, and that is when they go on strike. So these people are not unreasonable. The section in this power dynamics that is unreasonable is the government. So this whole blame of, food got spoiled during strike, we should put it in the right corner. That is at the corridor of power, the people running the affairs of this country, so that they would avert strikes. You and I are not privy to some of this information, but letters upon letters must have been submitted to the government before these strikes happen, so they can avert strikes, so that people don't come back to start blaming NLC and TUC. I think it would be unfair to blame labor leaders for the irresponsibility of government to avert strike in the first place. Look at Udemba. You are owing workers salaries of over 20 months. And then people go on strike because of that. And then you come back, we now come back to blame the labor leaders for going on strike. Why don't we blame Udemba, who was owing, workers' salary in the first place? So it would be unfair and it would be so uncharitable to talk down on labor leaders who are trying in their own wisdom to make things work in this country. Have they done so well? No. Can they do better? Yes. And I think that should be the bone of contention instead of talking down on them.
Okay, now Chidiebere, let's take a look at what even happened with the NLC president that led to the last strike. The event of brutalization of Joe Ajaero. Now, some people have said that Joe Ajaero was not exactly within his rights to be interfering in political matters, but others said that he was not exactly interfering in political matters. He was actually decrying the poor conditions in which the labor members have found themselves. What is your take on that?
Okay, I wouldn't really say if he was on his right or not. Yeah, but I think to some extent we see reasons to what he did. Yeah. I think he meant good for the people, as for the citizens. But then I think there are some approaches that we have followed, which we are not supposed to. Now, we were looking at this strike, the issue of the strike actions in our country. I think we should look for more diplomatic ways to handle issues when they arise. These kind of issues, because the government we are talking about, they are not affected. The actions we are taking, they are not affected by them, and it's they don't even care. So we should be looking for more diplomatic ways to handle these issues, other than suffering the poor masses. Okay, what happened in Imo State? The strike action by the Labour Congress for close to 3 weeks, there was no power supply. And the governor even said it himself that how did this stuff, it didn't affect the government, because the government, they are capable of running on alternative power supply for as long as they want. But how about the poor masses that are unable to afford petrol for their daily businesses. Okay, petrol is being sold for 710 naira per liter. So how do these individuals afford this? I'm not trying to discard their efforts, the effort of the president of the NLC. They are doing well. I mean, they mean well for the citizens, but then they should look for other ways to tackle these challenges, since our government are not really interested in these actions that they are taking, which is the strike.
Okay. All right, thank you for that, Chidiebere. Now let's quickly take a look at some social media reactions, and if we have time, we'll take 1 or 2 questions from that. Joe Berry says, NLC strike has been cancelled. Pity for the students that went back home. They never had and will never have citizens in mind when taking decisions. I think that's the same thing the students were saying. Presently, you are on your own. Now, Modibo says, many spillover students came from very far places to receive their spillover exams today. Unfortunately, due to NLC strike, they were unable to write the exams. Alao Abiodun says, I still don't understand the logical rationale behind this NLC strike. Why disrupt all activities, including economic, education, port, banking, others? This is 2 steps backwards. School students in Lagos were sent home this morning because of the strike. ABU Campus Connect says lots of students came from faraway places for their receipt exams today, only for some department to prevent them from writing the exam due to the NLC strike. Nigeria is frustrating. Well, that's all we can take from it. But Femi, very quickly, and this will be my final question, what do you think will be the best way to approach these issues going forward?
I think, like I've said earlier, it is for the government to avert strikes. That would be the best way. We should not, I've mentioned this, labor leaders do not just wake up one morning to call strikes. They don't, we all want to be comfortable. The strikes are not interesting. They are not fun. They don't just want to jump on the streets because they are bored. Do you get it? So the diplomacy around it and every other thing should be the duty of the government. Immediately the strikes are mentioned, meet with these people, discuss these issues, and let's find a way outside, all of this, instead of, looking at them, watching them, and when they go on strike, then you start sending your propaganda machineries outside there on social media to start talking down on the protests, on the strikes, and say, why I don't see the rationale behind it. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? But you saw when they were beaten, you didn't see anything. So these are some of the issues around it. So government, right, everything stops at the corridor of power. And I think that is where the whole issue is.
All right, on that note, gentlemen, I would like to say a very big thank you for joining me on the show. Femi Adeyeye, is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, I got that. Great. Femi Adeyeye, Co-Convener of Fund Education Coalition, Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, Chidiebere Udemba, human rights activist, Port Harcourt. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the show.
You're welcome.